Welcome to episode 6 of Rise and Resilience. Today's guest is Jessica Fabus Cheng. She is a registered nurse, former Team USA Taekwondo, and she is Mrs. Metropolitan America. Jessica, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Give a little intro for people who may not know who you are.
So my name is Jessica Fabus Cheng, as you mentioned. We're actually new to Long Island. I've been living in Brooklyn for over 20 years. Originally, I'm from Chicago, but I moved to New York when I was 19 years old. And so we're new out here. I'm a registered nurse. I'm an instructor of health sciences. So I teach something called surgical technology because my background is in the operating room, and I'm an OR nurse. And yes, I'm also an athlete, which is something that kind of happened by accident, which we could talk about later. And I'm Mrs. Metropolitan America in the Mrs. New York America pageant, which is coming up in July.
Okay. So tell us how you got into being in beauty pageants.
So this is something that I always wanted to do. And I remember when I was about 11 years old, I made a friend at school. Her name is Melissa, and she's still my best friend. She was my maid of honor, my wedding.
Wow.
And the first time that I went to her house, I remember walking into her room, and there were all these like trophies there and crowns. And I was like, what is this? Because it's calling my name right now. And I had this sense that it wasn't just something that was like given to her. She had earned them, kind of like trophies for athletics. And I asked her, I'm like, what is this? And she's like, oh, I do pageants. Like, it's no big deal. And I was like, pageants? And then she showed me all of her pictures, and she had this like dress, which I call poofers, because back in those days, they were like big dresses that you would wear like for younger kids. And I remember being like, this is it. Like, this is my calling. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And I went home and I was like, Mom, this is what I want to be in a pageant. This is amazing. Can I be in a pageant? And she was like, absolutely not.
Wow.
No way. It's not, for you, it's, there were just the misconceptions of pageantry. And, I was only 11 years old. It wouldn't be like in a swimsuit on stage, but so she really didn't want to look into it much, but I understand, like being a mom myself now, I understand that, you want to protect your kids and you want to make sure that the things they're doing are up and up. And so what happened was, me being me, I'm like, I can't accept no as an answer. And, that's a good thing. I was a little stubborn, but what I ended up doing was asking her the next day. I'm like, so what about that pageant? And she's like, no. Then the next day, no, the same thing. And finally, as she said, like, I badgered her so much that she's like, you know what? If you want to do a pageant, you can raise your own money and enter the pageant. So to me, that was like a yes. And that actually was the first time I realized the power that I had as a person who's determined. And I realized that if I put enough effort forth, I can do things. And so that, like I said, it was a yes to me. So I found a babysitting job, and for almost a year, I babysat every Saturday, and I would get like $20, and I would take the $20 and I'd put it into an envelope in my desk, and the envelope got fatter and fatter and fatter. And what ended up happening was people started coming out of the woodwork to help me because they saw what I was doing. And there was a photographer that my mom knew, and he offered to do like my headshots for free. And this is back when we were on film, so you actually had to pay for like film and supplies. And he said, if you give me $30, I'll do a professional shoot for you. So he did and my mom knew this person. It wasn't just like some person in their house, we did a photo shoot. That was the first time. Someone in my dance studio loaned me this like national level gown that her daughter had grown out of, which I never would have been able to afford at all. And, so people helped me out. And finally, I did the pageant, and I got there, and I remember getting on stage, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It was so crazy, but I achieved the goal, and it was a great learning experience for me. And I think that is the power of pageantry, is that, yes, you see people on stage in swimsuits and you can think a certain way about it, but the work that it takes to get there can be incredible. And I think it's an empowering activity for a child, for an adult. It's really how you look at it. And it's not for everybody. Not everyone wants to be on stage. But for me, it's just like called me, it grabbed me. So that's kind of a long-winded way of how
That's amazing.
I got into it, and I'm here today.
And all the stars aligned, you know.
Exactly.
The dress, the photographer, it was like meant to be.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And so I never competed again till I was an adult.
Okay.
Because, you know, the reality set in that I need probably more money than I had from babysitting, and so I kind of went in the back burner for a while. But, you know, me and my mom talk about this now because she's a huge supporter of me. Now she's like, I'm your biggest fan. Like, when's the pageant? I'm coming, you know, that kind of thing. And, yeah, now when I compete, I am there for a totally different purpose, which it's more about community service. And I feel like if I had been able to do pageants back then, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And doing Mrs. pageants, like Mrs. New York America, I have an incredible opportunity to make a huge impact for my platform and for the community work that I do. And I don't think I would still have the same drive had I been, you know, able to do it back then. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the biggest misconception of beauty pageants?
That they're just women prancing around on stage. And, you know, in some ways they have a point because, like, for example, Miss America, it started as a bathing beauty contest in the 1920s in Atlantic City. There was women.
I read that.
Yeah, like they would just parade around. But as you know, like, women were also looked at very differently, even back, you know, back then, not even, like 100 years ago.
Absolutely. So
I think it's interesting that pageants now have become more about your platform and you're empowering women and doing things for your community. And I like to say that, you know, only a woman would like take something like that and make it better, you know, and make it like viable and relevant.
Yeah. I was reading last night a little bit, and they started in Atlantic City, and that was to keep the tourists in, right?
Yes.
So it was just like, here's women. Like,
here's women.
Come
look. Yeah.
And a lot of the rules kept going back and forth with the bathing suit competition, the bikini competition, right?
Yeah.
Like they banned it, then they brought it back.
Yeah, I think with Miss America, and that's for, you know, unmarried women, I think up to the age of 25.
Is it still unmarried? Like,
Yes.
to this day?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
How is that still allowed?
Well, that's an interesting question. That's debatable, you know, but I think because there's different pageant systems out there. Miss America specifically, I know that the being a title holder in that system, I was never involved in it, but from what I've seen, they're very busy. So if you had a child and you're traveling 300 days out of the year, it's very difficult to have a family in that scenario. So I can understand that side of it, but is it a little bit antiquated in that sense? Possibly. But things are changing. And I know Miss America now, they don't have a swimsuit competition anymore. It's just more about, I'm not 100% sure actually, but I know they don't do that anymore. It's more about the woman and like what they're doing in the community.
Okay.
So Mrs. New York America, we do have a swimsuit competition, but in our state pageant, it's a one-piece suit.
Okay.
Which I think is good.
Yeah.
Because, you know, women have children.
Right.
And not everyone is going to have like the body of a 20-year-old. Right. You know, I would say like our bodies are better now, but it's nice to be able to, you know, feel confident in a swimsuit. So
talk about the other, like, so it's the swimsuit, and then what are the other?
So there's an interview, a personal interview, which is 50% of the score. And that's usually done the night before the actual pageant. And that's a big part of it. So you meet with a panel of judges, and, you know, you don't know who the judges are really until you get there. And usually it's a panel, and you walk in and it's just a quick interview, like 4 minutes. You just talk about what's important to you and why you want to be the next Mrs. New York and what you want to do, or whatever it is that you want to speak about. And then the following day, we have the on-stage competition. So then we'll have the swimsuit, which counts for 25% of the score, and then evening gown, which is the other 25. And then there's an on-stage question. If you make like top 10 or top 5, usually they'll do like the final question, you know, and they have dramatic music. Actually, they don't have dramatic music, but, you know, it's dramatic. It's a pageant. So.
And is this filmed? Like, can people watch it?
I don't know if they're going to be live streaming this year.
Okay.
But generally they do film it and it will be online.
Okay.
So all of the previous years, you can actually go back and look. I think up until like 2016, 2017 and on, it's all online.
And then you find out that same day they announce the winner?
Yeah. So based on the scores from the interview and then the onstage portion and then the question, that determines who the winner is.
That's amazing. All that preparation goes into like one night and one day.
Exactly. Yes.
It's a lot of pressure.
Just a little bit. Just slightly, just like a little bit. Yeah.
So
that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. So you started when you were 11 and then you took, that
multiple years off. Yeah.
Multiple years off. So when did you get back into it?
So I got back into it when I was around 28 years old.
Okay.
So that was like my first pageant, and in that style where it's like an interview and it's like a Miss pageant, and you have a local title, and it was a pageant that was held also in upstate New York. And I was the first runner-up, and I was like, okay, pretty cool. And then I tried different pageants like before I was married, but it wasn't until I got married that I really focused on the Mrs. America organization, and it's just like I found my place, I think. And I've actually competed. This will be my 4th year competing for that title. So
wow.
So if you're talking about like rise and resilience, like it's like keep getting hit and then keep coming back.
Yeah.
And that's
this
it.
is yours to take.
Right.
You're determined.
Yes, I'm very determined. Yes.
I love that. So what's the most rewarding part of being in the pageants?
I think actually the unexpected things that happen. So you don't know what's going to happen like on pageant day. And sometimes like you go out on stage and you like hit a pose that's like really confident, or you say something in an interview that really touches somebody. Those are the things that I feel like they're the intangibles, but those are the most rewarding things as far as the pageant goes. But then if you're talking about like the work you do in the community, those are also really rewarding. Like the people you get to meet and connect with and get to see. So those are the things that are like the best.
Right. So it's not the attention, it's not being on stage, it's not the lights, the cameras, it's just being, making a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, and my mom, we've talked about this too, that the sparkles and the lights and the cameras, that's like the hook. That's like, oh, what is this? Yeah. But then you realize that it could be, it's so much more than that. And it's like, I say it's like God's way of like getting you in, and then doing this amazing stuff.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So.
What's the most challenging part?
Most challenging part, I think, is staying focused. And this for me anyway, because I'm very focused on my goals and what I want to do, but it's easy to like not want to work out that day, or it's easy to just grab like a quick lunch somewhere. And that's still totally fine. And I definitely do that. But sometimes it's hard to like just stay like focused on the goal for so long. In my case, for so long. But, the more that I focus on it, the better it becomes, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's just like, it's tough, but
the reward is so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I find myself in that spot. Like I was an athlete my whole life. Okay. And then when I was no longer an athlete, no longer wearing that jersey, I didn't know who I was anymore. I like being active. I like, feeling good and my body looking good, but that purpose wasn't there. It was like, I don't need to, or I didn't have to go to the gym or eat right because I don't have to be on the field. Right. So it's like learning who you are without the jersey and knowing that discipline and that focus is important. Yeah. So absolutely. I can totally understand that. Yeah. So how long before do you prepare? Like how far out? So you're going to be the pageant's in July for Mrs. New York America. Yes. How far out did you start preparing for this?
Probably at the close of the last pageant, one,
which was
that was also in July
of last year. Yeah. So every year.
Yeah. So it's not the same level. Like being an athlete, like you understand, like you want to like peak at a certain time as an athlete, but so I'm not like going hard like every day, but you're in that mindset. And for me, because I know that I'm not giving up on this, it's always in my mind. So I'm always kind of mentally thinking that, I'm eventually going to be on stage. And every year I think I get better at my prep and how, the timing of it and everything. So it does involve like eating well and, exercising and, mentally preparing, because really it's the mental game, I think, that is the kicker. Like, yes, you have to have like a nice dress and you have to walk on stage and feel confident, but all of that really goes back to the mental training. And I think athletics really is that's positive and helping with that. So yeah, I would say probably like I'm prepping all year. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but I think that's the athlete in me too.
Right.
It's like I already know what it's going to take.
Right. Don't turn the switch off. Just
keep
it on.
Exactly.
So what's your like gym and diet routine like?
So I was going to say like blood, sweat, and tears. Like literally, I'm like, oh my gosh. I work out every day.
Okay.
I try to do some form of cardio, weight training, just, and some days if I'm not feeling it, having the grace to be like, it's okay. I could just chill. I don't have to, because again, it's seriously like that athlete mentality is like, you have to train, and sometimes it's okay to relax.
Right.
But generally I'm, hitting the gym like almost every day. With respect to nutrition, I just try to eat clean and healthy, and I do have cheeseburgers and I do eat like cookies and all of that. Like that's part of me too. But I think just eating clean and just trying to be focused and not being like thinking you need to be skinny or like emaciated, but strong. Because
that's the new thing is for
totally.
women it was like frowned upon to lift weights, and you need to be skinny. And I feel like we're as a whole, we are reaching like this new thing about women being in the gym, lifting, and just being like muscular rather than being so skinny. So
exactly.
I love that. I think that's so important. So how do you balance, because it's all about balance. Like you said, you're going to eat a cheeseburger, you're going to eat cookies. And I think when people learn to find that balance, and like you're majority of the time you're eating clean, but you do have those cheat days. You have those days where I'm not mentally into it for the gym. I'm going to take today off. That's okay. So how do you balance, being a nurse, being a mom, preparing for these pageants? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a lot harder with a child because they come first.
Right.
So I may want to exercise one night, but if my baby is like crying, I need to go stop what I'm doing or not exercise and take care of her. So that's always in my mind. So I think being flexible, number one, is the biggest thing. But apart from that, you do need a schedule and you have to execute the schedule. And if you say, I'm going to work out from 6 to 7, it's not like, oh, I'm going to be on Instagram from like, and I've been victim of that too. I'm like, look at these, pretty dresses and stuff that you want to see. But it's like, no, you got to go in and just get it done, but also be flexible. So that's really how I balance everything is I look at my week ahead and see like, what do I need to do? What do I need to accomplish this week? And then I just set goals for myself and I try to make those happen. But with the understanding that it might not work out exactly as I want. And I've had to let go of that because I think I am a little bit of a perfectionist. I have those tendencies. Like I really want to achieve a lot and I strive for excellence and all of that. So sometimes having to just not always be in control is actually a good thing. So I've been learning that over time.
I agree. I like that.
Yeah.
And life is just all about learning. We're all going through the same thing, similar things, trying to find time for ourselves, for the gym, for, children.
Yeah.
So I like that. It's being flexible.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit of like your competition. And do you interact with them? Do you know them beforehand? How is that whole thing?
So you may be surprised to learn that it's actually a sisterhood. Like when you are actually at the pageant, people are more likely to help you than want to see you fail.
Okay.
Because ultimately we're all there competing with each other, not necessarily against each other. Yes, it's a competition. But at the same time, like everyone's put effort forth. Right. And I think you see the best come out in people when people are helping like zip up dresses or, just helping or, if you don't notice something about your hair, someone will help you. And I mean, I really haven't had much experience with people just being like catty.
Okay.
I think what happens is that people are nervous and people are worried about, you know, the stage, or, you know, they're in a zone that they're not fully themselves. So I've seen people sometimes get short, but I don't think it's meant to be like rude.
Mean, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see it much, to be honest with you. Like, I don't.
That's good.
Yeah. So.
I was thinking of the movie Miscongeniality.
Yeah.
When they're all
Classic.
when they're all getting ready, and it's the scene where, oh my God, what's her name in the movie? But so the FBI is like, all right, this is off, we're done, we're not doing it, and then she comes back, she's like running late, and all the girls like help her to get ready.
That's
okay,
actually reflective of reality.
Good.
Like, they would step in and help.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's what's really cool about it.
I love that. So, how do you handle some of the pressures that, you know, may come with being in beauty pageants? Like, what's your outlet? Like, sometimes you need to, you know, turn your phone off. You know, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I think just kind of disconnecting and saying, you know what, I'm not going to be on social media for a week, or I'm not going to, you know, do this for a day. I don't necessarily, for me personally, I don't need to shut off because I don't give over so much of myself to those platforms that I
That's good.
need to you know, completely have a detox. Not to say that I'm perfect, you know, like, I have times where I'm like, okay, I need to get off Facebook or whatever. But I think kind of stepping back is good. You know, another outlet I have is working out and just spending time by myself. I think I'm the type of person that I am sort of like an extroverted introvert, or introverted extrovert, whatever that is. Like, I like to be on stage. I like to like be talking to you, but I know that I need time for myself. So
I'm the same way.
Yeah. I need to like go look at a lake, or like go do something, have a coffee in the parking lot. Right. You know, self-care, basically.
100%.
Yeah.
I like that. So leading up to the pageant, like your judges aren't looking on social media, so none of that really matters, right? Or are they?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, they could be, you know, they could be looking. I think ultimately it's really important to have a positive presence on social media, and because it shows self-control. If you can be positive or refrain from really getting entrenched in some of the hot button issues, and not that you shouldn't have an opinion, but I think it's really important, especially if you're a leader in your community, people are looking at you. And if you are easily swayed into multiple arguments, I think it doesn't reflect well on you. It doesn't reflect well in your state of life. I think about my daughter, like, if she looked back at this in 10 years, 20 years, would she be proud? You know, well, I'm gonna cry. But yeah, like, it's changed for me, like, deeply, where I'm thinking about the future. So yeah.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, so back to the competition, what parts of New York, like, make up the pageant in terms of, like, who's running for Mrs. New York America?
So anyone that lives in the state of New York.
Okay.
So we have girls that are from the upstate area.
Okay.
We have girls from down here. You know, the Hudson Valley, like the mid
So it breaks down like that. So is there like Miss Brooklyn,
Yes.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there is, I don't know if there's a Mrs. Brooklyn yet, but we do have, girls from the city.
Okay.
And then we also have a Miss Division in the pageant. So that was added a couple years ago. So that's kind of nice, actually, because you have another individual that, you know, would be kind of, you know, having a reign with you. But yeah, you could come from any part of the state, and then we're all competing for the state
Mrs.
still.
New York. Okay.
Yeah.
And it only lasts 1 year.
Only 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, if you do not win the national title. And if you win, because usually Mrs. America is several months after the state pageant. So if you were to win Mrs. America, then you would have, your reign would be extended, you know, because you'd become the national title holder.
Okay.
And then you'd have a longer time reigning.
Because there's a lot of pageants. I don't think people realize.
There's a lot of pageants. There are a lot. But Mrs. America organization is one of the oldest. I think it is actually the oldest Mrs. pageant system. This is the 44th year for the Mrs. New York America. So it's been consistent throughout that time. And there are many. And I think you have to be involved in things that speak to you, especially as you get older and, you know, having limited time as a mom or just as an adult. You want to spend time in things that mean something to you. And for Mrs. America, the reason I stay in it is because of the family aspect. Like their motto is literally "We are family," and then this will kind of relate to my platform, which we'll talk about later. But I connect with families, you know, so that's why I keep coming back to it, because it makes sense for me to be there. It feels like this is for me, whether I win Mrs. New York ever or not. I just love it.
I love it. Nice. So the winner of Mrs. New York America then has the ability to run for Mrs. America.
Yes.
And then if they were to win that, is there like, do you keep going on and on?
Yes. If you win Mrs. America, you'll go to Mrs. World. So that is when you have the national title holders from all over. It's almost like the Mrs. version of Miss Universe.
Okay.
Where you have maybe not as many contestants, because I think, you know, Miss Universe, it's almost like every single country, but it's a large pageant still. The Mrs. World organization, they have women from all over the world that are competing for Mrs. World. So it's like the sky is the limit.
Yeah,
you know? And that's another reason why I stayed, because that possibility of being able to be like an international title holder, talk about the impact that you'd have then, you know,
Insane.
So it's inspiring, and that's what keeps me going.
I love that. So there's the 4 like big ones. I think it's Miss Earth, Miss Universe, Miss World. What's the other one?
I believe maybe United States.
Okay.
Those are Miss. They have a Miss division.
So you cannot be married. It's Miss.
Right. A lot of those pageants do have a Mrs. division as well.
So you have the option.
You have the option.
Okay, that's good.
It just depends.
It depends on where you are.
Yeah.
I was reading, and I hope this is true. The Philippines holds the most titles.
Okay. I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My fiance is Filipino.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, yes, let's go.
Okay. Yeah. They are like, America is excited about pageantry, but the Philippines and like other countries, especially like South America, it's a way of life. Talk about a way of life. It's a way of life over there. And I sometimes say like I was born in the wrong country, because I should have been in like Venezuela or something, where it's like, you know, whatever.
It's true.
Or the Philippines or something.
I think they value it. So like it's very different.
Yes.
It's very important for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So I read that. I was like, that's exciting.
Yeah. They sure do hold a lot of titles.
Yeah. So let's talk about the fact that you're a black belt in Taekwondo.
Yes.
Former Team USA. Tell me all about that experience.
Okay, so I actually started Taekwondo by accident.
Okay.
Like I like to say, because it's a very interesting story. I was staying in a hotel in Chicago, and I always preface the story by saying that I'm fine, because it freaks people out. But I woke up in this hotel at like 4:00 in the morning, and I had a bad feeling. Like you just like a feeling there's something wrong here. And I sat up in bed, and the door to my room was open. Was wide open. Like, you know, could have had an animal in there. And I had just woken up. So I'm like, what's going on? I know this is bad. And I heard like someone like yelling outside. And I'm like, what's going on? And finally I started to wake up. I got out of bed and just like went, I don't know what kind of courage that was, but like I just went to the door to see like what was going on. And what had happened was a late arriving business traveler had been given the key to my room by mistake. And he was supposed to be in the other room, like next to me. And it was like 3 a.m. or something. And so, like I said, I was fine. But I realized in that moment that had that person not had the best intentions or saw some opportunistic thing, I mean, I was literally sleeping in a bed. I don't know. I would have, of course, like fought, because I'm an Aries and I'm a fighter, I guess. But I didn't know if I would have had the mental state of mind to be present, that I would have just been going on like the fight or flight, and that would have been part of it. But I don't think I would have had the mental presence to be able to effectively fight. I wouldn't have known techniques. I wouldn't have known what to do. So that was a life-changing moment for me. So when I got home to New York, I was getting off of the train one day and I saw a martial arts school. And I was like, let me go see what that is. Didn't know, because originally I was looking for self-defense classes, any type, like maybe a police officer would teach it, or I don't know, mixed martial arts. I didn't even know. And I walked in and it was a traditional Taekwondo school. There was a Korean flag on the wall next to an American flag. I'm like, oh, traditional martial arts. Never thought of that. And so I started talking to the master that was there. And I realized that if I start this process, because I'm the type of person, like, I want to finish what I started, I need to get a black belt. I'm not going to like quit at green belt and be like, okay, well, it was really hard. And, and then I also like to say that when I had joined the school, about 3 months in, I was probably like a green belt or yellow belt or something. I remember the instructor, we were in like the push-up position, like on our knuckles. And he was just like, you need to stay here for like 5 minutes. And then we're going to do like 50 push-ups after. And I remember looking at the floor and there's like sweat like dripping off my face. And I'm like, what have I done? What have I done? How am I going to get a black belt? I'm only a green belt at this point. But I stuck through it, and it took me like 3.5 years. But I finally achieved getting a black belt, and it was a 5.5 hour test, and it was crazy. Yeah.
You were a black belt in 3.5 years?
Yes. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, I went a lot. I started going a lot, just because I started having that drive and that. I think I've always wanted to be an athlete, and when I was talking about pageants and I saw the trophies in the room, I knew that took hard work. And it's interesting because I think we talk about like kids today that everything is instant. Everyone's on social media. Everyone wants something right now. There are people and children, I believe, that desire that discipline, that want to work hard for something of value. Because I had that. I knew that I wouldn't just get a trophy. I would have to like train for a year or whatever to even be in the pageant. So yeah, I just want to say that, because that part of it is so key. Is just to have that desire, but also to know that it's going to take work.
Right.
So the 3.5 years really just came from me having that desire and the discipline to keep going. And actually very early on when I started martial arts, I injured my knee like really bad before I was a yellow belt, I think, or maybe I was. It was like the first belt after white belt in our school. And I literally dislocated my knee. And I had to make a choice then, like, do I continue on doing this? Because I'm not a teenager even. I'm like 29 years old, at that point. Like, do I continue doing this? And I did, because it's important. And I wanted to get that black belt. And frankly, nothing was going to stop me. So
resilience right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Right there. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
So do you do any other mixed martial arts?
So I don't.
Okay.
I've always wanted to try at least other styles because, in martial arts community, like sometimes people are like, oh, well, karate is the best or BJJ is the best. And yes, you may have techniques in there that may be superior to maybe something in Taekwondo, but Taekwondo has its value. I think they all have pieces that are very effective. So I don't like that argument of like
what's better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But my knee, unfortunately, I have had to be really, really careful since I started to not I can't really do grappling. I can't really do a lot of the jumping kicks on that leg. And martial arts, you have to do both sides.
Right.
So it's been a journey. So no, I haven't, unfortunately.
Okay. How did you get on the Team USA? Tell us about that.
So again, that was another thing that happened, just not by accident, because at that point it was a lot of training. But when I was a brown belt, so I had been in the school for almost maybe like 2 years, a year and a half. To get your black belt, you had to compete in 5 like local tournaments, like with your school. That was just their requirement because they wanted you to have that competition experience. And our school like changed locations at one point. So it took me till I was like, I don't know, around 2 years in to even start competing. And in Taekwondo, they have sparring and they have pumse, which is forms. So that's like the art part, basically. And in the Olympic world, Taekwondo is in the Olympics, but only for sparring. But they still have Team USA level sports for other sports that are not in the Olympics. I personally think, and that's just an aside, but Taekwondo, if you're accepting that into the Olympic program, you should also have the forms as well, because that's part of the history and the art of it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sport.
Yeah, so right now they don't, but it is a Team USA sport.
Okay.
So it is a world level, like you can go to the World Championships, all of that.
Okay.
So I just one day competed and I won. And I was like, okay, cool. It wasn't like, a thing too much. I'm like, I'm a brown belt, people are learning. And however, I do remember seeing a video before I competed because I was like looking online to see, okay, I need to prepare for this competition. And my school taught me some things, and I found this video of a high level Taekwondo team that were doing these forms, like the black belt forms, but at an extremely high level. And it was like, that was another moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I was entranced, and it led me down a certain path. And it was so beautiful and powerful. And I'm like, I want to do that. But at that time I was like a brown belt, I had some skills, but I was still learning. And so I just started competing here and there, local tournaments in Queens. And I started doing well. And someone suggested, they're like, oh, you should try like the New York State Championships because, you can go to nationals if you do that. And this is when I was a red belt. So I was almost to black belt, but not quite there. So I did, and I went to that tournament when I was a red belt, and I got the silver medal. And then I qualified to go to nationals, which was in Dallas, Texas that year. And I went, and then I ended up winning at nationals as a colored belt. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is very scary. It was like a gigantic mat, But after that, I got my black belt. And then when you become a black belt, now you're competing with all the black belts. So if someone is there who has been doing martial arts since they were in the womb, you're competing against them. It doesn't matter what dan you are. Like if you're like first degree, second degree, third, everyone is in there. So it suddenly becomes really, really hard. But I started to have that dream of like, I want to be on the national team one day. That would be like mind blowing, and that led me down a path of just over the years, just competing and trying to get better and kind of going all over the country and training with different teams. And in 2017, July 3rd in Detroit, Michigan, I'll never forget, probably 8:42 a.m. and 30 seconds. I was on a team with two other women, and it was a 3-person team for forms. And we won nationals. And I like to say that I have lost, instead of the local competitions, I've lost every other competition that I've really been in, at the national level, at the international level. I've never won there, but I won when it counted, and like that. And from there we actually advanced to an international competition that was held in Las Vegas. And ironically, at the same hotel that the Mrs. America competition is held at, we advanced to that competition and we won the gold there. So,
congrats.
Yeah. So that was, after that I kind of started my family, and I don't think I'm done. I'm not done with athletics. Okay. It's just I'm taking a break.
I like that.
Now. But yeah.
So you think you're going to eventually go back to Taekwondo or something else?
I think I'll probably continue just because I want to push myself. But if I could try other forms of martial arts, I would. I would definitely try it.
What would you be most interested in trying?
Probably like karate or something with kicking, because like Taekwondo, we do a lot of kicking and stuff like that. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Would you say that you've manifested everything that's happened in your life? Because it sounds like everything, you see something, you want it, and you picture yourself doing it.
Yes.
Like you never put the limitations on yourself. Would you say that's like a huge way in like your thinking and your success?
Absolutely. I never thought of it like that, but
yeah, because that's how it sounds.
Okay, yeah.
You see something, you want it, and you just can't stop thinking about it. Like
right.
you pictured yourself on Team USA.
Yes.
The minute you became a brown belt or a yellow belt.
Yeah.
And
even though it was like a far-fetched thing, I saw. Yeah, you're right.
You saw yourself doing it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in like manifestation.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
That's what I did. Because it's not just like I look at that thing over there and I want it. It spoke to me. Because I think you have to have a certain level of openness to get on your true journey, and those things, and sometimes you don't understand them. Right. So I think that's the faith part where you just do it without knowing what the outcome is going to be. And And it's the same with the pageant too. Like, I have no idea what the outcome is. And I'm on a specific journey though. And I know that I'll know when I'm at the end of that journey, you know, but yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Yeah.
It's
interesting.
amazing.
That's very exciting. Like, wow. Yeah.
So I want to get into your platform a little bit, and the fact that you're an advocate for Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Yes.
And I know that hits close to home for you, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure, definitely. So Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Never thought that would be in my life. Not something I wanted to manifest. It definitely wasn't in that range.
Right.
So in the early part of the 2000s, my cousin was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And usually the diagnosis comes around the age of anywhere from like 2 to 4, generally around 4 years old.
Wow, very young.
Very young. And what happens is either like an occupational therapist or a doctor will notice that the child is either, you know, having trouble getting up off the floor in a certain way, and they position themselves in a certain way to get up off the floor, or they may have delays in speaking, sometimes, not always. But in the case of my cousin, I believe it was either a physical or occupational therapist that had noticed that the way he was getting up off the floor or walking was not that it was wrong, but it was developmentally different than a child his own age. And so what happens then is he was tested by blood for this disorder, and he was found that he had this. And what it is it's a gene deletion. It's a genetic disorder, and it's the protein that codes for dystrophin, which is dystrophin is what allows your muscles to rebuild themselves. And that is literally either doesn't function optimally, or it's not present, or something different. There's different forms of Duchenne. But he was found to have Duchenne. And at that same time, the doctors said that this is an X-linked genetic disorder, meaning that it is oftentimes passed down through the mother's side of the family, because a female has 2 X's for their chromosomes, and then males are XY. So on one of the chromosomes, the deletion occurs.
Okay.
So we were suggested to get tested to see if we were carriers for the disease, because what happens is, because females have 2 X's, we have that other chromosome to kind of take over for the parts that are not functioning properly on the other X, which is, it sounds confusing, but basically females generally don't exhibit the same symptoms. And I was found to be a carrier. So that means I have a 50% chance of passing it on to a child, whether that be a female or a male. And if it's a male, it's the actual disease. And if it's a female, carrier status.
Okay. And
sometimes female carriers can manifest. So that means that you could have, sometimes you have an enlarged heart, or you have muscle fatigue, or you have, any number of things. But sometimes you feel nothing. So we were tested, and several women in my family were found to be carriers as well. So this is how my cousin ended up having it. There are instances where it is a spontaneous mutation of the gene, so it can just happen. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just, biology, so testing is very important. So at the time that my cousin was diagnosed, we started to take action. Mostly my aunt and her family, and then my mom got involved, and then my other aunt, and we would do like walkathons and different types of fundraisers just to raise awareness. And we began working with Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, which is the patient advocacy group that is an incredible organization, so supportive, and they've been in our lives for the whole time. So my cousin, he just turned 22 years old, so we've been with them. And I got more involved after I became a nurse, and I started to understand the power of advocating for somebody. And as I mentioned, I'm an operating room nurse, so the patient is asleep, and if a lot of times when you're in the hospital, for example, the patient is aware of what's going on. Right. If they are given a medication, they're like, this doesn't make me feel good, or this gave me a reaction, you're going to report that to the doctor, and then perhaps the doctor's going to change the course of the medication, etc. When the patient is sleeping, you're their eyes and ears. Like, if you don't say anything, something could occur. And it's not that they're meaning to do anything. Right. It's just, it's surgery. Mm-hmm. So things happen quickly. So I started to realize that I could have a connection between it's literally like a passion. Like, it's sort of like martial arts, because Taekwondo, for example, is a defensive martial art. Like, you're doing a block or you're doing a punch. You're defending someone or yourself. And advocacy for me is like that. Mm-hmm. I can defend someone, but I can, literally speak up for them. So being a nurse kind of like enlivened that in mm-hmm. me, and martial arts. And that's when I started really getting involved with the actual advocacy, where we're approaching our lawmakers for funding, for research dollars, and, basically walking arm in arm with the families in the muscular dystrophy community. So that's really where it started from, but it was definitely like a personal connection, because the experiences that I had in my family, I know that there's thousands of other families that are having the same or similar experiences. Mm-hmm. So being able to feel empowered enough to stand up and say something, because some of these families, they have the best intentions. They would want to speak up. They may not have the means to travel to Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. They may not be emotionally ready to do that. So that's where we step in as advocates to talk to our lawmakers in Congress.
So for someone to get the disease, mm-hmm. Does the spouse, like the male, have to be a genetic carrier too? Does it have to be 50-50?
No. The male, the spouse doesn't usually have anything to do with it. It's the female.
It's just the female.
Yes. So I know in my case, it was a conversation that I had to have with my husband before he was my husband.
Absolutely.
And I'm the type of person, I'm very forthcoming with that type of information. But then again, you don't want to be on like a first date and say, by the way, when we have kids, this is what the deal is. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a precarious situation. But luckily, I think we had dated about a year. I started talking to him about that and just mentioning that this is where I stand. And it's not that we can't have children, because some people do opt not to, but it may not be through the natural way. It would have to be through in vitro fertilization. Okay. Because the embryos would have to be tested. Okay. To see if they're either a carrier or they actually carry the disorder.
Is that what you did?
And that's what I did, yes. Okay. So I went through, egg retrieval, minor surgery, a lot of genetic testing, genetic counseling, because for me, I did want children. Mm-hmm. I wasn't willing to take a risk that, there is a chance that the baby would be fine, but 50% is very, very high.
Yes, it is.
And also given my age, I'm over the age of 30. So, there's a chance that, you may have other issues related to that. So we went with the IVF form of family planning. And that's the other part of it that a lot of people, not that they don't understand, but in Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, for example, our slogan, one of the things that we say is end Duchenne, because it's not necessarily about curing it. It's about stopping it. Yeah, just stopping it in its tracks. And for some, some people have children already that have Duchenne, and now they know that they're probably not going to have more children, or they would go through genetic testing. In my case, I didn't have children yet. Right. And for me, ending Duchenne is literally a lifestyle choice, where either I decide not to have children, or I go through other means of doing that, or I take a risk. But for me, and there's a lot philosophically, we can get into that discussion, but I just wanted to have a healthy child if possible. So it's really affected every part of my family and my family planning. So that's, also makes me very invested with this whole community, because I feel it, like every aspect. I may not have a son with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but I know many people who do. My cousin has it. I'm a carrier. I understand the struggles, and the hardships. And as a nurse as well, I also see things a different way. So I think I'm also in a unique position because as a healthcare professional, under stress, you're able to act, in an emergency or in an emotional situation. And I think not having my own son has helped in me being able to advocate as strongly as I do, because it's a highly emotionally charged situation. And that goes into my platform because my platform is called The Power of Your Story. And what I've found is in advocacy situations, when you tell your personal story, that is what people remember. It's also unique to you. No one can really fight you on what your experience has been. But when we approach lawmakers, for example, if I just sit there with a bunch of charts and say, well, this medication does this, and this is how many people have it, that's information that's needed, that's educational. But you can glaze over after a certain time. But if they understand the face behind these charts and why we're asking for funding that we are asking for, they're much more likely to sign on to appropriations letters or things that are needed to provide funding for research for Duchenne.
That's so true. So you recently did that in March. You met with congressmen and women.
Yes.
How did that go?
It was amazing. It's always a little bit scary at first. And one of the reasons that my platform is called The Power of Your Story is because I remember being in a meeting, and this is not this year because it was virtual this year. Last year, we had a meeting in Senator Schumer's office with his staff member, and there was a wonderful grandmother there advocating for her grandson, and she started talking, and emotion just came. And that happens a lot, just because if you can imagine, it's your family member and no pressure. You're in your congressperson's office, you have to talk. It just made me realize how important it is to be able to express the feelings that you have so our lawmakers can understand why they need to act, So it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. And that's really what my goal is with my platform, is just working with individuals and families to help them tell their story in the proper way. And if we need to, we have, bullet points, or we have it on paper. So if they have to read it, they read it, but they get to say everything that they want to say.
That's amazing. So in terms of the research and the funding, what's the main goal in terms of is there things that we still don't know about the disease that we need to learn more? Or is the goal, like you said before, to really just end it and to just educate families hey, genetic testing is important. Yes. You should go get tested. Yes. Family planning should be a part of, all right, let's figure out what genes we may carry. That way we don't continue and we can end certain diseases.
Yeah. I mean, we know enough about where the disease comes from, how it happens, that, it comes through the female line or it could be spontaneous. Okay. We know about the process of it. There's always, surprises, just in science in general. I think you're always in that mindset of learning, but we know enough where now there are FDA approvals for certain drugs that actually, Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, one of the only patient advocacy groups that has gotten 5 different FDA approvals for gene therapies and different types of drugs that will help combat this and stop it in its tracks. I think there's always something to learn, but we're at the point now where we just need to continue the research, the funding, the science. We need to, and that's why every year we go to Capitol Hill, every year consistently, and ask for $10 million confidently, $12 million this year, because we need the brightest minds out there in the CDC, the FDA, all of these. We need those people working on this, and we need governmental money, really.
Of course.
And also, I just want to say this, it is a bipartisan issue because it's a human issue. We need both Republicans and we need Democrats. So it's not about who did you vote for. It's about let's have government work. We literally extend our hands out to both sides of the aisle and say, let's work together. And they do sign on, Republicans and Democrats, and they actually work together. It's amazing how that works, So that's why it's important. Yeah.
I love that. So in terms of you building your family. So having a son is not an option at all, even with the genetic testing?
It is an option.
Oh, okay.
It is an option. We would just, it would be a son that did not have Duchenne.
Okay.
Because...
So they test
They test embryos, yes.
Wow.
And it's a very emotional process too, because yes, they're microscopic embryos,
right.
But knowing, because when you do this sort of testing, if it's a female or a male.
Right. And
then sometimes, you have an embryo transfer, and this happens in the fertility world. Sometimes that doesn't work, so it's an interesting dichotomy. Like, how do you attach emotionally to it? And you kind of have to stay far away from it, but then you're also involved. So yes, having a son is possible, but it involves testing.
The testing.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of, just infertility in general. Mm-hmm. I think a lot more people suffer with that than what we know. And I think there's like a stigma behind it. And a lot of women aren't comfortable talking about it. And it takes a toll on your body mentally. Yes. It's exhausting. It puts stress on a marriage. Mm-hmm. So I think just being able to speak about that in general, and women being comfortable saying, hey, I suffered this. But I went through this. And I think that's just something that we need to do as women. Just
I agree.
Be so open to talking about it.
I agree. So. And then, just knowing that there is support out there, knowing that someone can approach, even though it's not exactly related to what I do, I'm there, I'm available to talk to, and just seeing people. And I know in the pageant world, there are women that use that as their platform, and they have that because it's so personal to them. And that's a way of breaking the stigma, is having those platforms that directly deal with infertility or the stigma surrounding that, and breaking the silence.
Yeah. We have to be better as women.
Yes, we do.
We're going to do it.
Yes, but we will. And that's the thing about women. Like, we will do it.
We will do it. Yeah. We're determined. Mm-hmm. So, if you could tell a young girl or someone your own age who may lack confidence, to follow their dreams and to put themselves out there, what would you tell them?
I would say that the things that are important to you because you feel them in your heart. And you may not know how to express it yet, or you may be a little confused about what your purpose or your journey is in life, but you have to listen to your heart. As cliched as that is, I believe that you are uniquely made in a specific way. And that's part of life's joy and life's journey, is finding out what those things are that make you tick and passionately and fearlessly pursuing it. That's why I'm still here doing the pageant, because it is in my heart. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I win in July, or I don't win for the next 10 years, or I never win. It's there, and I'm following it. And it's because I know it's inside. And, people will naysay. People will not understand what you're doing. Like, oh, she's still doing that? That kind of an attitude, or, oh, it's a pageant. Oh, it's a sexist thing. Okay, fine, but knowing that you can do so much with it, and it's your dream, and like your story, no one can take your dream away from you. You just have to passionately and fearlessly pursue it. So that's what I would say. Do it. Go.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
You're motivating me.
Awesome.
So what would it mean to you to win Mrs. New York America?
I don't even know. It would be a moment. I'd probably have like an out-of-body experience. I would know what's happening, but it would mean so much to me because, yes, it's a personal dream that I have. And like I said, that's what like hooked me in, like the glitz and the glamour, and it's fun and exciting. But I know what I can do with the title. And I could, just the visibility factor that you can give more voice to Duchenne muscular dystrophy. There are many great causes out there, but I think not a lot of people know what Duchenne is and how that's so important for family planning. And, that there are people in your community that are dealing with this right now. And so winning would be everything. It would be a dream come true, honestly. Yeah, definitely.
I'm rooting for you.
Awesome.
So who has been the most influential to you? Or it could be multiple people.
Yeah. I used to say, and it still is, but Michelle Obama is just, I think, a classy woman. She also was an IVF mom. She's from Chicago, like me. She's someone that I would want to emulate. She had a platform you know, and she literally walked her talk. So she had, like she got up every morning. She was, I mean, I don't think I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. on the treadmill. So I admire that. But just walking the talk, anyone that like walks the talk really is someone that I take notice of, because it's inspiring, because I know, like I said, the dreams that I have take work.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard just to constantly push yourself. So when you see someone else doing that, and, you know, now my biggest hero is Pat Furlong, who is the founder, along with other parents and grandparents, of Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. She is a nurse. She was an educator. And she had 2 sons who had Duchenne. And she literally was told, when this is back in the early 90s, just to basically go home and enjoy them, because there's no hope. There's no cure for this. So just have a good life. I mean, I'm sure they didn't say it like, have a good life, you know, but that there wasn't the hope that there is now. And so sitting around a dining room table with other parents and grandparents, as just a mom and a nurse, she founded this organization. And that's why it's called Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. And 20 years later, we have been on Capitol Hill. We have 5 FDA approvals. There are advocates that are being grown throughout the United States and New York. She's literally someone I want to be like. She's just incredible and authentic. And I think that's what it is. She did something that was in her heart. So she's like literally my hero.
I love that. Aw.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you get to work alongside her and fight with her. So that's like probably the best feeling for you.
Yeah. She's considered one of the foremost advocates in the entire world for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Yeah. So that's who I want to be.
And that was founded on Long Island? Or
I believe it might be in New Jersey. I'm not 100%. It was in the tri-state. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So this was amazing, and I want to leave off with something fun.
Okay.
If you could choose one superpower, what would it be and why?
So I would choose to speak every language in the world.
I heard that recently. Someone said that.
Yeah.
I was like...
Yeah, because if you think about being on a train in New York City, there are so many languages going on, and people are having very animated discussions. And not that I would want to eavesdrop on them, but I would kind of want to know, like, what's going on. I would like to talk. I like connecting. Like, I want to know what's happening. And I think language is the key to understanding of not just like physical understanding, but having more compassion for other cultures, because that language is the key to their entire world. And if we can understand each other more, I think we could have world peace. Thought of that pageant answer quickly there, but
I love it.
Yeah, but literally, you know, we can have more understanding. So I think that would be amazing to speak every language.
I like that,
because I could travel, and it would be awesome.
Do you speak any other language besides English?
I can speak a little bit of Spanish,
okay, but
it's not like native level really.
Okay.
I've always loved the Latin culture and like the food and the music, and you know, I've loved that about it. So I've tried to learn here and there, but it's, you know, I mean, I took French in high school, but like I was young and I was like, I wish I could go back and like be like you were in school.
And then in college I took a little bit of Spanish, but I want to like make it a point to learn like a second language. My like I said before, my fiance is Filipino, so they speak Tagalog, and I'm always surrounded by his family, and to know like I don't know what they're saying, and like that's so frustrating for me.
Well, I have that experience because my husband, his family is from Taiwan, so a lot of times when they're together as a family, they're speaking to Mandarin, and I'm starting to like understand, but like not really, because that's a hard language to learn. But I totally get that. I'm like, I'll just sit here. I don't know.
I always nudge at my fiance. I'm like, translate what's going on.
Like what's happening? What did you just say? You know?
But he can't. So the good thing is he can't speak it, so I don't feel super left out. But he can understand it. Yeah. So it's not like he's speaking it and I don't really know what's going on. He can at least listen and then like kind of translate. Yeah. But I would like. I mean, those languages are not easy to learn.
No.
So it would be a challenge, but worth it. Yeah, totally. So maybe next time I see you, we'll be speaking.
Yeah, we'll like greet each other in a different language.
Yes. So thank you.
Yes.
How can people connect with you, follow your journey with the pageant, or, even help with the fundraising and the things that you do?
Well, I have a website.
Okay.
It's jessicafabuscheng.com. So that's one way. Instagram is probably the best way. I use Facebook, but I would say I use Instagram more. So it's Jessica_Fabus_Cheng, on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those would be probably the best ways to do it. And you can also go to MrsNYAmerica.com in the next coming months, because we're going to have something called the Fabulous Face Contest. So that's where we try to raise funds for Victoria's Voice, which is the official charity of the Mrs. America organization. And it's about opioid awareness and education. And it's an amazing, amazing organization, founded actually by the Seagulls, who are the owners of the Westgate Hotel. They lost a child to opioid, an overdose. So they've made it their mission. And so I really connect with that too, because there is advocacy in that as well. That's how we're going to get Narcan and naloxone into the hands of first responders, is through advocacy and education too. We need to educate everyone. So that is what we'll be raising money for. So basically you'd go to the website and then you'll have the pictures of each of the contestants, and then you can vote for those contestants. I think I don't know how much it might be, like $5 a vote, but it all goes to a good cause.
Okay.
So
good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Good luck in July.
Thank you so much.
I'll be rooting for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.